Welcome, everyone. This is just a very brief test of live casting on a few different channels simultaneously. Very excitingly, our Where Research Begins YouTube platform, which has existed for some time, but now Chris and I are really starting to upload more materials there, but also simultaneously live casting to LinkedIn and Twitter. This is sort of preparation for Friday when we're going to have a much, I'm going to lead a deep dive, a 30-minute deep dive into how to ask research questions, how to ask brilliant questions. And so really just want to make sure that the technology is working okay. But I am actually also very happy to field questions. I see that there are some people who are watching. I don't know in which platform that is, but I've got all of the different platforms up. I'm happy to field any questions about the research process, anything that's on your mind about academia, but also wanted to give a little sneak preview of what we'll be talking about on Friday, which is how to ask questions of a primary source. So let's see here. Over on LinkedIn, what is this? What is this looking like? Let's see. Who knows? I have absolutely no idea where in the realm of LinkedIn this live feed goes to. Apparently, it is going somewhere. But in any event, oh, it looks like here I am. I can see where I am now. So what I wanted to dive into and see if this works all right is to talk about the meaningless question raffle that Chris and I have been hosting for the last 2 weeks. This is where we put a primary source in front of just the world at large, and we offer something cool. So recently it was this Kodak camera. We do have a winner for this, this Kodak camera. And the one goal of the one objective of the exercise is to ask as many questions as you possibly can of this source. We call them, Chris Ray and I call them meaningless questions. These are questions that do not aspire to impress anybody, and also are not limited in any way. So for example, the source that we presented in this most recent is the following source. It is a nutrition label that one finds on the side of a food package. And so we presented this image. We gave everyone about a week to ask as many meaningless questions as they possibly can of this source. And we had about quite a number of contestants. They did a really great job. Two really just rocketed up the charts, Hrant and Ben. And eventually we do have a winner who we announced today. Hrant won the camera. Ben was a very close follow-up. I offered, if you're watching, I have a special offer because you just did so well on it that I don't want you to walk away empty-handed. But the idea here is that if you are in the archive, an ethnographic situation, you're looking at a data array, you're looking through your telescope, you're looking at an artifact, you are a researcher in some way, shape, or form. You're a product designer and you're looking at some sort of artifact or object. What are the first 15 seconds of your thought process look like? In many cases, we're taught or suggested to us that our goal in that moment is to put things in context. If we're in class, to connect it to the themes of the course. If we fancy ourselves a blogger or someone who has to produce writing on a regular basis, we're encouraged to kind of come up with a neat angle on this thing very, very quickly. And what Chris and I say is we want to avoid all of that. And in these fragile and exciting first 15 seconds of an interaction with something, what we actually want to do is ask meaningless question. So I'll give you an example of a meaningless question here and then define it. So what is the font? What is the typeface that is used here? Why are those thick black bars not all of the same width? And why, for that matter, do they not extend to the full left and right of the screen? Let's see. There is 9 grams of total fat, but in the subcategories, there's only 4.5 grams of fat. So what are the other 4.5 grams of fat that are not listed? Why is trans fat listed if it's 0 grams? Why not use that space to tell us the fat that there is rather than what there isn't? Why is the trans in trans fat italicized? These are examples of meaningless questions, what Chris and I refer to as meaningless questions. They are not trying to sound smart. They're not trying to be meaningful or explain anything. And as you can see, some of my questions are about nutrition, total fat, saturated fat, but some of them are about the design, the visual appearance of this. What is that font? What do these colors mean? What are the hex code values of that color blue or that color pink? And we put this out, and most people over the course of a week got to about 15, 20, or 30 questions, which is really, really respectable. 2 people broke 100, got to 100 questions. And what we're trying to put forth there in a kind of fun way is that the ability to ask questions in an unfiltered way of any source that is in front of us is an intrinsically powerful skill that one can foster, that one can practice, like working out a muscle, that serves you in the research process from that point on, even if you're confronted with a source that you yourself didn't choose and may not even care about. You want to be able to look at a source like this and get to 100 questions, 200, 300 questions without breaking a sweat. Because when you do care about the source, you want to be able to do the same thing as well. So please, in the comments, I see some people here on LinkedIn. I don't know what this looks like on Twitter, whether or not this is being live cast or not. It says it is. Let me go over to YouTube. I just want to make sure also from a technical standpoint that the sound is okay. You can hear what I'm saying. I would be very curious to know that. So I see some people over on Twitter, a few people on LinkedIn, maybe a few people here on YouTube. But by all means, I would love to know if the sound is coming through okay, because we are getting ready for Friday. Oh, cool! I do see a question come in over here, which is awesome. All right, there we go. So let me turn on the chat here. All right. Hey everyone, is the sound okay? Let's see if anyone can see me as I ask the general world. We have a webinar on Friday, and what we're going to do on the Friday webinar is actually look at the questions that that people were asking in the raffle that just took place. So again, Ben was second, Hrant came in first, but there were many, many others. And the questions that they submitted, we're going to analyze those questions. We're going to, first, in order to understand what does it mean to ask a meaningless question, to ask a question that's not trying to hit the ball out of the ballpark on your first at bat, so to speak. Then we're going to talk about what do you do with one of these questions? Like, if you ask, like Hrant did or Ben did, ask 100 questions, what do you do with those 100 questions? Do you go out and try to answer all of them? What if you had 300 questions of a source? Is the goal simply to create an inventory? The answer is no. The answer is we want to do something else with the questions first before we try to go answering them. But then, after we do that process, we are going to talk about what it looks like when we try to answer one of these questions. What happens when we go out and we find out the answer to why is the word trans in trans fat italicized? How do we find a source that gives us the answer to that question? And when we find the answer to that question, what do we do next? What we're getting at here is a research process in which decision fatigue, the question of what to do next, all of this wasted cognitive energy is removed from the process as much as possible so that your cognitive energy can go towards what it really benefits, what benefits you, which is focusing on intuition, interpretation, and so forth. Okay, so let's see. Let me go over here again into Twitter and see if there are any. Let's see. I'm going to go over here, home, trying to figure out where in my feed. I'm new to this within LinkedIn. Where in my feed is a live cast shown? We shall find out. All right. Is it in events? Well, we'll find out. And then over here in YouTube, let me see what's going on. My channel. All right, there we go. Cool. Let me click into here. Excellent. All right, so we have, oh, cool. We have a few people watching. We have a few people who came through. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open up the chat there and see what's going on. Got it. All right. So let me go ahead and ask my friends over here in YouTube at our Where Research Begins YouTube thing, is the sound coming through okay? Can you hear me? All right. Great. So again, this is just kind of a technology check, a tech check, but also a preview of what we're going to be discussing when we host the next live stream on Friday. So if you are interested in stopping by, what I'm going to do is also share over here in Twitter. I'm going to go ahead and share the link where you can register for the webinar. It's free, but it is, we're going to be joined. Actually, one of the winners is going to be joining us, so maybe we can pose some questions about how did they think of the questions they thought of. And then over here in LinkedIn, maybe, actually it might be being fed through Where Research Begins itself. No. All right. Well, who knows? We will find out how this exactly works in LinkedIn. It is not entirely obvious just yet. That's okay. All right. Okay. So the last thing before logging off, again, this is just a short preview, short test, is, I got a heart. Cool. So I think maybe at least in YouTube the sound is coming through. At least I hope. The webinar is called How to Ask Brilliant Questions. The key giveaway, I'll give away the argument that Chris and I make, is that brilliant questions don't come from brilliant people. Genius questions don't come from genius people. We need to give up on the idea that there's some sort of genetic predisposition to asking brilliant questions. The truth of the matter is that brilliant questions begin to emerge when we stop focusing on what Chris and I refer to as performative intelligence, the desire, an intelligence of SAT scores and large vocabularies and impressing teachers and authority figures. When we put that aside for a second and we begin to cultivate this other more instinctual form of our intelligence, the intelligence that is able to ask meaningless questions. The part of us that simply notices things, and we need to cultivate and build up that musculature so that when we notice things, we're actually saying things aloud. You would be amazed at how many brilliant questions people ask and then immediately silence or mute even before they say them out loud. They think to themselves, who am I to ask this question? My gosh, what a naive question. I'm sure someone smarter than me thought of this question. We do all sorts of things to silence ourselves from asking what Chris and I refer to as meaningless questions. And if we could just turn down the filter, turn off the editor, allow those naive, raw, instinctual, sometimes silly sounding questions to emerge, that actually is the source or font of brilliant questions. Not the side of us that is asking questions in order to impress a counterpart, an authority figure, or an interlocutor. But we're going to talk about that a lot on Friday for those who stop by. All right, so let me go ahead and wrap this up. I'm going to come back over here, go ahead and check over on Twitter. Okay, the link is there, and I will see some of you on Friday, and really excited to dive into how to ask brilliant questions. I'll see you then.